Biafra, Middle East. We are on breakfast, and Biafra is rising. All right, welcome back. Of course, it is Radio Biafra Middle East. We are live, we are direct, and Biafra is rising this morning. And of course, I welcome you if you are joining us right now. And I have with me on the line my guest this morning, and his name is Haki Shakur. I've told you more about him, but of course, he is with me. He is here right now. Some of you know him, and of course, some of you have been following him on Twitter. Some have been following him on Facebook. He talks nothing rather than Biafra and Africa. And this morning we need to hear from the horse's mouth. He is one of us. He is of Biafran descendant. And this morning I'm privileged to have him with me. Let me go straight to him and see if he can hear me. Good morning. Can you hear me? All right, just 1 second. Let's get this sorted out. Can you hear me now? Not happening. Just 1 second. All right, can you hear me again? Right, I'm trying to sort this out. There seems to be a problem somewhere. Just a second. Hold on a second. Let's get this sorted. I think we're good to go. All right, can you hear me again now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
There we go. There we go. Good morning and welcome to Radio Biafra Middle East. How are you doing?
I'm doing.
It's been an effort to get hold of you. You are a busy man, and I can see. And of course, I am happy that you are here with us this morning. All right. Your name is Haki Shakur. I don't know if I got this right. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. How do you call it? Just to hear from you.
Yeah, you said it correctly.
All right.
It's Haki Kweli Shakur.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Most of our people have been hearing about you. They have been seeing videos of you talking about Biafra restoration, at the same time talking about Africa. Now, tell me a bit about you. I'm sure our listeners will love to hear that. Please go ahead.
Well, yeah. Let me just start off by saying, man, I truly appreciate you inviting me on to this platform and letting me speak to the beautiful people of Biafra.
Thank you very much.
First of all, you know, I'm from Virginia. I was born in the United States of America. I'm from a place called Richmond, Virginia, in Virginia.
All right.
Born and raised. How can I put it? I'm a political activist. I'm a historian. I'm an activist for political prisoners. I do a lot of work with political prisoners here in the United States of America. A lot of community work here in North America, trying to free our freedom fighters from behind the wall. This is the month of the Black Panther Party. When the Black Panther Party was formed here in the United States of America, so I'm a descendant of that movement, of the Black liberation movement of the 1960s and the 1970s. So I'm carrying on that torch of my elders and my ancestors who were freedom fighters here inside the United States of America. So a lot of my work is centered around those elders who were captured by the United States government that we're trying to free here today in the United States of America. And I'm a Virginia boy. I'm born and raised.
All right. I think I know Virginia. I've passed through Virginia. You know, when I was going to Atlanta, I used the Greyhound. You know, it's a bus. I decided to take a bus from. So you know, we made a stop at Virginia. It was a very cool, you know, quiet place. I love it.
Yeah, very quiet.
All right. Now, let's talk about Biafra. What is it about Biafra? What do you have in common or in relation with that name Biafra? Please go ahead.
Well, let me just start off by saying that the most common thing that I have with Biafra is the fact that our ancestors, New Africans, you know, misnomer called African Americans, our ancestors in the majority that was taken from our motherland which is the west coast of Africa. I call it Biafra. A majority of
Biafra. I love that. Biafra. That's a good concept.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I call it. I call it Biafra. The majority of our ancestors that were taken out of that region and taken out of West Africa, specifically taken out of Biafra land, and the majority of our ancestors were brought here to where I am at, in Virginia, and most of the states, where we call them southern states here in the United States, where the slave trade took place on the plantations of the southern United States. In those states, the majority of our ancestors came directly from Biafra land, Igbo land.
Stunning.
So the majority of the new Africans, misnomer called African Americans you see here in North America, the majority of us have Igbo ancestry. And this is by the records. We know this for facts because we have the records, we have the documented history, we had the archives, especially here in Virginia. So a lot of people, if a lot of my Biafran brothers do come to the United States of America, you will see the Biafran culture in the majority, and the Igbo culture in the majority here in Virginia, because this is where the most Igbos and Biafran people were brought to in the slave trade. So we know, like us new Africans, African Americans that live in America, we know that the majority of our ancestors is Igbo. We know that for a fact. We have an Igbo village here where they hold the Igbo ceremonies every summer in June, July. So a lot of the elders that come from Biafra land, Igbo land, that come here, they're helping us Africans, new Africans, African Americans reconnect with our Igbo ancestry. So for a fact that I have Igbo in my bloodline. That's the most important part. Is through the horrific slave trade, we know that we have Biafra blood, so that automatically connects us to Biafra land. So,
all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Before I finish, I was gonna say, the second connection is the struggle. It's the struggle of Biafra that I connect with, because the struggle of Biafra, I see the same struggle of my people here in North America with my elders and what all of them went through. And part of that history of a lot of my elders that's in the Black Panther Party who are political prisoners, they have passed on this information. They have passed on this history of what took place in the Civil War between Biafra and Nigeria. And a lot of my elders stood in solidarity with Biafra land when I was just a baby. In the 70s, the 80s, they made it an effort to stay connected to that struggle. So through that struggle also is my major connection to Biafra, is to carry on that tradition, carry on that struggle, to stand in solidarity with my brothers and sisters in Biafra land, because we here in North America, we know what's going on there. A lot of my Biafra brothers and sisters might not think that a lot of African Americans in America don't know what's going on, or they might not care, or things of that nature. I just want to tell those brothers and sisters who listening to this broadcast, that's far from the truth. It's a whole lot of us here who are consciously, politically, socially, culturally connected to Biafra land, and our other African ancestors who also were kidnapped and brought into the United States of America. We are very in tune with the struggles there. So that's one of the other major reasons.
All right. That is mind-boggling. Now, listen to this. I know there has been a lot of tension, when you go to America, you see some African America, it's like they have issues with people who are coming from Africa. Then I begin to realize that a lot of lies has been told in the past. You understand what I mean? Now, people don't know who they are, their connection, or where they come from. Now, how long has this lie
To be honest, since forever, since the foundation of the United States of America, if you want to be technical. And the reason why I say since the foundation of the United States of America has been going on like this, because people got to understand colonialism. They have to understand what happened to those Igbo ancestors and those other African ancestors who were brought on them ships. And when they were brought to America, and throughout the time, throughout the history of them, this is the one thing Biafrans got to understand, is that my elders, my ancestors, y'all ancestors that were born here, you got to understand how many years they went through that brutality of enslavement. 300, matter of fact, 400 years. This is the 400-year anniversary of those ancestors being born here to North America to be enslaved and work their whole life on these plantations. So throughout that period of time, you got to understand the indoctrination from these Europeans, the British Europeans, and what would become the United States of America, the European American slave owners and plantation owners. This has been a constant 400-year indoctrination of division, of trying to keep us separated from our brothers and sisters on the continent and the brothers and sisters in here. So it's just been 400 years of lies. You see what I'm saying? And it's strategically done to be that way so we won't unite and so we won't come together. So they continue to petrify and push this lie that, okay, African Americans don't like Biafrans, or Biafrans don't like African Americans, or Africans on the continent don't like Africans in the African diaspora. I want to tell my brother, it's a total lie. And when you come here, don't fall for it, because it's a European trick just to get you to make you not unite with us or get to know us or to love us and things of that nature. Don't fall for it. Every African brother and sister that come here, I always try to take them under my wing to let them know, don't fall for the division that these Europeans, because we have the same oppressors who's initiating and controlling all this oppression on both continents of our people, man.
Right, this is beautiful, this is great, and of course, if you are joining us, it is Radio Biafra Middle East, and of course, this is where you are. We are live, we are direct this morning. It is Radio Biafra Middle East, and of course, Biafra is rising. This morning, Biafra is rising. All right, that is true. We are live. Biafra is rising. If you are joining us, I am here chilling with Haki Shakur all the way from Virginia in the United States of America. He is American and he is a Biafran, and that is what is important and that is what matters. And we are talking Biafra here and some other issues relating to Africa. Now, Haki, tell me, what are you all about? What are you fighting for?
Yeah, I'm totally happy you brought that question up, because that really wants to, really get me into what I really wanted to state. Who am I and what I'm truly fighting for? Let me just lay it out as simple as I can lay it out. Is that it's been because a lot of Africans on the continent and a lot of Africans across the world, not specifically the African diaspora, but Africans who are still on the continent and who are scattered out throughout like Europe and all the other type of places in the African diaspora. This is the one thing I want to clarify, because this is going to bring me to my point, what I'm fighting for. People have to understand, the Africans you see in North America have always been continuing a struggle that's been taking place on this continent since our ancestors been kidnapped. And what is that struggle? That struggle is for us to get back to what we were before we were brought here, and that's total freedom, black liberation. Because a lot of brothers and sisters, and African brothers and sisters that I talk to across the globe, they think new Africans, African Americans in America are just people who are just here, who's living good, and that we're not fighting for nothing. That's totally false. That's a total lie. Because the one thing I want to make clarified to all my brothers and sisters is that we're going through the same oppression that every African black person on this planet is going through. And we've been going through it ever since our ancestors been born here. And we've been fighting against it. We have lost so many ancestors, so many freedom fighters throughout this 400-year period of being here in North America. So that whole sacrifice, that whole struggle of us trying to get free still exists. We're not satisfied with just having a seat at this table here in North America, because we're still being murdered. We're still being genocided by the European Americans, because I know a lot of y'all think that, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of peace here in certain areas of North America, but there's a lot of genocide and a lot of self-destruction that's still going on here in North America that's being facilitated by the people who govern us. And the people who govern us are the descendants of the same people who brought our ancestors here. So I just want to let my people know that, no, it's not all American dream here for black people. Black people are barely living above the poverty line here. There's ghettos here. There's death, disease, poverty, just like every other place across this planet. This is what y'all don't see on TV. The only thing they show y'all on TV is the rich blacks and the rich Europeans who are actually, they're living good here. But what about the other 45 million new African Americans who are living here? They're not living good. We're not living good. So that just brings me to my point on what I'm struggling for. I'm struggling for the same thing that Biafra is struggling for. We have the same independence movement that's been here since 50 years, around the same amount of time that the Republic of Biafra been here. A lot of my brothers and sisters, my Biafra brothers and sisters, they hear me talk about the Republic of New Africa a lot, where the Republic of New Africa is the same twin, identical movement of the Republic of Biafra's movement. We have our own nation here. We have our own freedom fighters here who are still in prison, who have took those sacrifices for us to try to get free. So I'm a citizen of the Republic of New Africa. I'm a New African revolutionary nationalist. I believe in land. I believe in independence for my people here in North America. And I believe in the Garveyite doctrine. I believe that we have to return to Africa. If we don't return to Africa free, if we don't help free Africa, we will never be free. So my whole thing is this. I want my brothers and sisters here to be free, and I want my brothers and sisters in Biafra to be free. And the only way I truly see that happening is continuing to struggle with all our freedom fighters that have sacrificed their lives on the continent and the diaspora. It's unification. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I am. I'm a New African. And just another thing that I want to clarify is that the white man called us African Americans. That's not a term that we called ourselves. It's the same thing that the British and the Nigerian government did to my brothers and sisters in Biafra. They gave you a false nationality. They gave you a pseudo-identity. They gave you a slave identity, which is Nigerian. Well, the African-American nationality and terminology is the same thing as that Nigerian nationality and terminology because it was given to us by the same oppressor, which is the British. The European Americans ain't nothing but the descendants of the British. So the movement we have here, which is the New African Independence Movement, we don't identify with being African American. But we do let our other African brothers and sisters call us that because that's all they know. Us fat is being African American. But we are New Africans. We represent the New African Independence Movement. We represent the Republic of New Africa. That's what I stand for.
All right, that is great. And of course, if you are joining us once again, it is Radio Biafra Middle East. And of course, if you don't know, here is where we are.